Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalamu alaikum. We're here tonight to discuss Juz 21. We're now entering the last 10 days of Ramadan, and I hope, inshallah, that it's been a successful month for you so far. This Juz encompasses 5 surahs: Ankabut, Rum, Luqman, Sajda, and Ahzab, and I'll mostly be focusing on the first 3, just to share my reflections. The first thing that stood out to me in Surah in Ankabut, pretty much right into the beginning of this juz, is how God explains the miracle of the Qur'an in a way that I don't think I paid attention to before. So he says in ayat 48, speaking to Muhammad, you have never been able to recite any divine writ before this one was revealed, nor did you ever transcribe one with your own hand. So he couldn't recite or read, and he couldn't write. He's telling us that. Or else those who try to disprove the truth would have indeed had cause to doubt it. In other words, if he had known how to read and write, people would have accused him of creating this work himself. No, but this consists of messages clear to the hearts of all who are gifted with knowledge. And again, the phrasing here speaks to both the heart and the mind. Clear to the hearts, a sudur, of those who are gifted with knowledge, who have that clear vision. Bayanatum fi sudur walladina utul ilm. And they have innate knowledge. So this is a message that appeals to both our hearts and our minds. And none could reject it unless reject our messages unless it be those who would do wrong to themselves. And then he goes on to say, they say, why have no miracles, miraculous signs ever been bestowed upon him from on high, from his sustainer? And he says, miracles are in the power of God alone. And as for me, I am but a plain warner. So this is where God tells us this is how it had to happen in order for you to be the recipient of this revelation, because you did not know how to read or write. And this is the miracle of our religion. Moving along to Surah Ar-Rum, the Byzantines. There's a beautiful set of verses early on in this chapter that extol the wonders of God's creation. This is in verses basically 17 through 25, 26. And some of them are familiar to you, but the first one, of course, is that among his wonders are ayatihim, signs also. This word ayat can be translated in many ways. He creates you out of dust, and then you become human beings ranging far and wide. And then among his wonders is this, and this is the verse that is often used on wedding invitations and at weddings, because it's a beautiful description of marriage relationship, partnership. He creates for you mates out of your own kind, the anfusikum, so that you might incline towards them. And he engenders love and tenderness or mercy between you. In this, behold, there are messages indeed for people who think. And among his wonders is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and a diversity of your tongues and colors. This human and biological diversity is one of God's wonders in his creation. And indeed, in this are messages for all who are possessed of knowledge. So the first one said for people who think, this one for people of knowledge, have this inner ilm. And among his wonders is your sleep, something we may take for granted, at night or in daytime, as well as your ability to go in quest of some of his bounties. In this, behold, there are messages for people who listen. So these are for people who think, people who have knowledge, people who listen. And among his wonders is this: he displays before you the lightning, giving rise to both fear and hope, and sends water from the skies, giving life thereby to the earth after it had been lifeless. In this, behold, there are messages indeed for people who use their reason. So he doesn't repeat the same thing. People who think every time, think, listen, use their reason, have knowledge. And among his wonders is this: the skies and the earth stand firm at his behest. Unto him belongs every being that is in the heavens and on earth, which implies beings outside of our worldly existence, and all things devoutly obey his will. So this is putting out this intellectual rationale and understanding that these are not things that occur by chance, even though they seem to be just a part of our regular life and our world. He singles these specific issues out as his signs to show us. I just want to talk a little bit about this verse about mates from among yourselves. And when we read it, when we talk about it, it sounds as if there's like a soulmate that's just waiting to be found out there that God has created for us. In the larger sense, he's created us mates from among ourselves. It goes back to the creation story of creating one soul and out of it creating its mate. But maybe it's more personal for each of us individually. But is it something that's just out there waiting to happen? And if we just happen to discover them, then we'll have this amazing relationship. And even when we think we've found that person, sometimes it doesn't work out. And Islam, compared to all other religions, gives space for what to do when that happens. But you wonder, so is there something wrong? How do you get to have that relationship where you have that mawadda and rahma between you? And part of this verse is when he says, so that you might incline towards them. And the word is linaskunu, which means like to repose or rest, so that you're resting and settled with one another. And as a result, he engenders, or ja'ala, he creates this love and mercy between your hearts. So it is an interaction. It's not something that just gets deposited in us. As we know, everything, our whole religion, our whole faith has how we behave towards other people. So out of that goodness and that good behavior and kindness towards one another, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create that mercy and love that allows you to rest and repose with one another in a peaceful state. Moving along, talking about another relationship, this is also something we look at frequently as parents, how to give advice to our children, worried about our children. And this is in the Surah Luqman, which follows the surah. And so this is a lesson for all of us. It's a father to his son, but it's really a message for anybody who's reading. But looking at it in that context, it's a lesson for us in terms of how to talk to our family, those people we care about, and what to say. So the first thing he tells him is don't ascribe partners to God. And he starts it out, Ya bunayya, oh my dear son. Remember in sort of the previous shows that I did, we talked about Noah calling out to his son, oh my dear son. This is a phrase that's not just, oh my son, it's my loved son. Do not ascribe divine powers to any besides God, for behold, that is indeed an awesome wrong. And the next thing he tells him is to be good to his parents. We have enjoined upon man goodness towards his parents. His mother bore him by bearing strain upon strain, and his utter dependence on her lasted 2 years. Be grateful towards me, God, and towards thy parents, and that me with me is all journeys end. So this is truly important, but sometimes also there are problems with the parents, especially if they are asking or forcing their children to do things that are against God's will. So he says, yet should they endeavor to make you ascribe divinity side by side with me to something which your mind cannot accept, so to associate partners with God, obey them not, but bear them company in this world's life with kindness, and follow the path of those who turn towards me. In the end, unto me you all must return, and thereupon I shall make you understand what you were doing. So even this is at the time, people whose parents were idol worshippers, that if their children became Muslim, they still had to behave with kindness towards their parents. So no matter what the dispute is, that is still our obligation as Muslims. Oh, my dear son, verily though there be aught but the weight of a mustard seed, though it be hidden in a rock or in the skies or in the earth, God will bring it to light. For behold, God is unfathomable, all aware. And I think of this as a parent, now my kids are adults, but you want them to feel accountable. And even though everybody has tools on their phones that can track their kids, they know where they are, we don't know what they're doing all of the time. And Luqman basically just reminds them, you can't hide from God. You will be accountable even for the smallest deed. So keep that in mind. He's not talking about being accountable to him as the parent. He's talking about him being accountable to God, that God knows all, and just be aware of that. Be constant in prayer, enjoin the doing of what is right, and forbid the doing of what is wrong, and be patient. Bear in patience whatever may befall you. This is something to set one's heart upon. I don't think we can emphasize enough what patience means in all aspects of our lives, especially young people wanting things to happen fast, really wishing their lives were different, comparing them to others. And Allah says to be patient, because this will help us and navigate our lives. And turn not your cheek away from people in pride. So don't turn away. And some commentators have said, don't turn away from those you care about. If you have an argument with them and have a grudge against them, don't do that. Don't be prideful towards others, and walk not haughtily on earth. Don't be arrogant, for behold, God does not love anyone who out of self-conceit, thinking they're so great, acts in a boastful manner. So again, he's not talking about how he feels about this behavior or what other people will think. He's saying God does not love anyone who out of self-conceit behaves in this arrogant way. Be modest in your bearing and lower your voice. For behold, the ugliest of all voices is the braying of the ass, is the sound of a donkey. So he's saying, stop and think before you speak. Is what you're saying going to be meaningful and true? Be modest. You don't have to get all of the attention, because this is the best kind of character that you can have. And then he finishes, and the chapter probably goes on to talk more in general terms to all of us, but I sort of look at it this way in the whole context. That he says, are you not aware that God has made subservient to you all that is in the heavens and all that is on earth, and has lavished upon you his blessings, both outward and inward? So he's basically sending his son on his way, saying, and remember, the world is at your fingertips. God has given you all of these blessings and has made the heavens and the earth subservient to you, to us, to mankind. And so, but there are those who, without any knowledge of God, without any guidance or any revelation, when they're told to follow what God has bestowed, they say, we shall follow what we found our forefathers believing in and doing, this idea of taqleed. So even in the context of Luqman, it's not about him as the father, it's about the belief that the son has in God. And finally, he says, whoever surrenders his whole being unto God and is a doer of good has indeed taken hold of a support most unfailing. So this is your mission. Take hold of the support of God, and he will not lead you wrong. For with God rests the final outcome of all events. It's important to give this kind of loving advice to those we care about, because later on in this surah, on the Day of Judgment, he says, we will not be able to intercede on behalf of our children at all. And he says in verse 33, O men, be conscious of your sustainer and stand in awe of the day on which no parent will be of any avail to his child, nor a child will in the least avail his parent. So we look to this model of Luqman and loving kindness with wisdom, concern, but a little bit of detachment, because it's not really so much about, even though his son has to be kind to him as his parent, his son's future and life is in his own hands, and it is between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So thank you again for allowing me to share my reflections this Ramadan with you, and I wish you all the blessings for the remainder of the month. Wassalamu alaikum.